Cyber Education Research Center at Murray State University, and welcome back to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Grow West, the Technology Council of West Kentucky, KY Innovation, and local partner Sprocket Innovation in Paducah and the Kentucky Innovation Station in Madisonville. This week, I want to talk a little bit about social media, and in particular, I want to talk about verified accounts and two-factor authentication on social media, and what the blue check mark really means nowadays. So back in October, Twitter announced that it was going to start charging for you to have the blue check mark. So what's the blue check mark, first of all? The blue check mark for celebrities, for those public accounts back in the early days of Twitter, they started verifying that they really were who they said who they claimed to be. So the idea is that we would have a process. Typically, it's you got to verify with government ID credentials. There's a bit of a process, not extremely difficult, but enough that you do have to verify who you are. But we would verify. So if you're a celebrity and you wanted a blue check mark, you would go through this process and you would get that check mark. Now, the reason that these celebrities, it may be news, it may be sports, it may be movies and TV, it may be organizations. But the reason that you add these check marks is that there's so much fake information or disinformation that's on social media. They use this as a way to verify if this celebrity is saying this, it's really the person who they claim to be. So if it says that it's the president, it's truly the president. Or if it's if it's the governor of Kentucky, it really is the governor of Kentucky and not a fake account. That's why they started doing this. And it was a great way to make sure that we were getting the correct information. For example, if I'm reading news from the Associated Press on Twitter, I want to make sure that it's truly from the Associated Press, not some fake person making up their own narrative. And that's why this was important. Well, in October, Twitter announced that to get that check mark, you're going to have to pay a monthly fee, $7 or $8 a month, which in and of itself isn't horrible. I don't like it because this is about safety and security, not about a money-making grab. But that started this process, this domino, and the next piece was they didn't go through all the steps to verify people. So in October, you had people logging in saying that I'm certain people, and there wasn't a lot of verification. Actually, in some cases, very little to no verification done. So one person came on and said they were a particular drug company and that this drug that has been historically known for being too expensive was now free. Well, it wasn't really the drug company that did it. Some impersonator went in, paid that $8, got that check mark, and it was impersonating that drug company. Not real, but that's what happened when the due diligence that was being done by Twitter was no longer being done. It became chaotic. Next, last week, I believe it was, Twitter announced that it was going to end two-factor authentication for anybody that was not a blue check mark. So what does that mean? That means if you want two-factor authentication on Twitter, you're going to have to now pay for it. That is not a service that they should have. That is a security feature that we should require as consumers. So that change really bothers me in that it's going to impact the security of Twitter. Now, with that said, I did read in the last few days, one, it's costing Twitter $60 million to do the verification or to do the two-factor authentication. I don't know if that number's right. Now that they're a private company, it's hard to get all the numbers out. But assuming that number's right, there's only a fraction, like less than 10% of users on Twitter that actually have that two-factor authentication turned on. But let me answer, what does two-factor authentication mean? We've talked about it on here, but I want to explain exactly what that means and talk about some of the challenges that we still have on two-factor authentication. First of all, two-factor authentication, and I found this graphic online, and it's simple enough to do it. Two-factor authentication Once you put in your username and password, then it's going to ask you to enter in a code. And the actual problem with two-factor authentication is shown on this graphic. This is a graphic that comes from somebody else, but it wants you to put in your phone number. That phone number texts you a code, or Twitter or whatever service that's using two-factor authentication would text you a code. Then you have to enter that code in to prove that you are who you are. It's another layer. That phone number has to match what's on file, and then it would text you, and you would get that code, and you would enter it, and you'd be authenticated. And that's great, and that works, except there's a problem with that. The problem with that is phone numbers can be impersonated. You can use somebody else's phone number to get that code. So if I wanted to say that I was this phone number, and actually this phone number is not even a real number, so it's not going to work. Um, if you're in this area, you might know how to do that. So if you're just using a phone number as that second factor, that is not as secure as using an app on your phone could be, because that app has required you to do some additional um, configuration to make sure that you are who you say you are at the time of install. So now that's a little bit more secure than just your phone number. For example, Murray State doesn't allow the texting. It wants us to use the app. So we all have an app that we can use. So the point of that is two-factor authentication is good, and actually using the phone number is better than nothing. But there's another layer that's even better. And honestly, for us, using the app is cheaper than using the phone number. So maybe what Twitter really needs to do is to go to that piece of actually using um, that as well. So also, over the last few days, Instagram and Facebook have announced that they would have additional verifications on their platforms for a fee for certain users. So for Instagram and Facebook, it's $14.99 a month if you use an app. It is $11.99 a month if you use the website to set it up. And essentially that's because whatever platform you're using your app on, your phone app store gets a cut of that fee. So what they're saying is that if we use our our website itself, then we don't have to cut the middleman in, so to speak. And that other organization won't get any of that fee. So Facebook doesn't have to charge as much, or Meta doesn't have to charge as much to get the same amount of revenue. So is that good or bad? Well, the devil's going to be in the details. It's going to depend on how they implement it and how they do it. On the surface, there is so much poor information that's on social media today that I think anything in this realm is good. If we can verify accounts, I think that part is good. The problem that I honestly have with it is we're paying for that service. Now, is there a cost to do that? Maybe there is, but that's not what they're doing. They have decided that check mark, that verification has a monthly value, and they're going to charge for that monthly value. And I get it. Social media companies, like any other company, is in the business to make business, or to make money, in the business to make money. And it's their right to do that if they want to do that. What I would hope is that we can find a way to continue to log in securely, two-factor authentication. If you looked on that slide, I had 2FA, MFA. There's a couple of different ways that people refer to it, but whatever, multi-factor authentication is so very important for our security nowadays. That way, that if our password or username got stolen, then we would still be able to verify it in a different way. This isn't going away. This is a discussion that's going to be had over the next several weeks and months. So I'll keep you posted on how it plays out. But what I will promise to do is that next week I'll come back and I'll share some tips that, regardless if you're a blue check or you're verified, I'll share some things that you can do to keep yourself safe on social media, and we'll talk about that next week on 10 at 10. Thank you for joining today. Hope you have a good day, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.